has tried to solve quality of hire? Who has given up? Actually, a lot of hands went down. That means a lot of people didn't give up. Maybe that was like a reverse negative. We have 25 minutes. We're going to solve this right here, right now.
Unlikely.
Will we ever? Okay, name, company, and I'll throw a curveball. The other intractable problem that you would solve if you weren't trying to solve quality of hire. Jeff.
Hey everyone, I'm Jeff Moore. I'm at Toast. I'm going to go world hunger. I'm just going to go big.
Yeah, go big.
Hunger.
I like it.
Becky McCullough, I'm at HubSpot, getting my kids out of the door on time in the morning.
Bigger than world hunger.
Yeah, bigger than world hunger.
Kyle Forrest with Deloitte. I feel like the intractable problem I would solve is, are we going to live on other planets?
Ooh.
Which maybe helps with world hunger.
It's possible.
How do you define quality of hire?
Teddy's just going to start right out of the chute. It's like no mercy. I think quality hire is like the mythical beast that everybody wants. Everyone talks about it, and it's something different for everybody. And I think for me, it's hiring great talent that is able to ramp and do the job. And now you could get way more detailed and way more nuanced, but I think sort of at its finest point, that's quality hire for me.
Same answer, nuance?
I don't believe there is a North Star quality of hire metric. I do believe we have a saying, if you can trust the process, you can trust the outcomes. So for me, quality of hire is a great process.
Earlier this year, or maybe last year, there was actually a gentleman, Steve Hunt, who used to work at SAP, who collaborated with Crosscheck and wrote a book, like measuring quality of hire, which is an example, I think, of the many attempts at like defining it. And one of the things that I was thinking about coming into this with that question was actually Josh earlier from Mofo, which I will never forget the name of his company now, with Mofo, acknowledged like the 8-fold lawsuit and the credit score framework. And I think maybe to both of what you're saying is, I don't think there is a single metric, but if you have a framework, that is probably what's going to be most helpful, because we were just talking about like quality of hire for an executive versus an early career person, an AI native engineer versus a software engineer who's not AI native. Like you're going to have different things coming out of how you assess it. But if you've got a framework, that actually might be more helpful.
Yeah, okay, so the title of the talk is Improving Quality of Hire with AI.
We've already killed it.
So if we're going to improve something, we have to have some sort of a baseline about where we stand today. So like Becky, you talked about it's not an outcome, it's a process. What are the things in that process that you actually would baseline to say, okay, we've got the right inputs to be confident that we're going to get the quality outcomes?
So, going back to my point, there is no single metric that you can use. Kyle said this, you've got so much different hiring across your organization. You do have a ton of data. And that data right now, or in a baseline, is a whole bunch of noise. Through different interventions in your process, you can create signal through that noise that gives you greater confidence. It allows you to move faster. It allows you to fill your hiring needs sooner. And I think if you create the framework or the diagnostic that gives you signals and you understand which signals matter more, then you have a really good pulse on like which signals are flashing and which aren't, which can then help you like course correct very quickly.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's like, am I assessing well for the things that matter?
Yeah.
Full stop. And I think we're getting to a place with AI and other tools where you can do that well. Yeah. I think that's always been the challenge, is you never knew what was happening in an interview. Yeah. And you relied on notes and stuff. So I think there's a lot there.
One of the things I think that's related to this that I was actually discussing with a few folks at lunch is that was started from one of the earlier panels talking about some CEO copycats on different things. And we kind of acknowledge, as you look at some companies that have done workforce reductions, how quickly some of them are hiring people back. Mm-hmm. And some of that is because there was a formula, whether it's tenure at a company or time and level at the company or some other thing that said, okay, these people gotta go. Then you actually realize, oh my gosh, I've let people go who, if I was measuring quality of hire in a certain way, would have been maybe at the top of our quality of hire list. So how could we have ever let those people go, right? And so I do think because of the way that AI from a data analysis, a pattern matching, pattern recognition at scale in different ways than we've ever been able to do before, now gets us to a point that we should be able to raise the bar on quality of hire and hopefully avoid things like letting the wrong people go when we're having to make some of those tough business decisions, because now we actually have better data on performance and impact of if they were gone.
All right, Jeff, I want to come back to what you said. You said like assessing well for the things that matter.
Yes.
So what's harder, defining what matters or assessing well?
Yes. Yeah, well, I mean, I joke, but yes, because if you think about defining what matters, generally you're going to get 1,000 different opinions. So you've got to be really good about boiling that down and trying to use data, probably from performance or calibration or whatever, and then actually locking in alignment, which I think is one of the real struggles that a lot of people have, is alignment, long-term alignment. Aligning for a week, not helpful. And then the assessing, I think that's always been sort of the real challenge. Is you can say, Jeff, go ask these 5 questions. I go into my interview and I ask 5 different questions. And so how do you structure the interviews? How do you ensure that? How are you training? How are you ramping interviewers to really focus on those things? And so it is a yes.
Yeah, so they're
sarcastically,
both
but
broken.
they're both really challenging.
Becky, at HubSpot, where have you placed more of your, I mean, do you agree with that? And if so, like, where have you placed more of your emphasis on trying to get people to align on what good it is, or trying to actually solve the calibration consistency challenge?
You can't have one without the other, honestly. And I think to Jeff's point, you need a really strong data loop. This is why quality of hire is not a TA problem. It is a company, it is a company problem. In the research, the book that you referenced, they talk about this. Like, if you look at the entire ecosystem of data points that can predict someone's success, their lifetime value of an employee, the hiring process is like a sliver of it. And there are so many different interventions. And so that's why having a really good people data infrastructure underneath all of your processes is so critical to be able to get that real signal. And so for me, it's taking a population and saying, all right, let's look at the data we have on that population's interviewing. And then let's look at sales reps, for example. Let's look at their quota attainment. Let's look at their call volume. Let's look at their close rates. And let's see if there are patterns that exist in the things we tested on in the interview process and what actually shows what's important. That then helps tweak your interview process. And I think in the past, we used to do that and then put it on a shelf and run a process for 3 years. Today, with the rate at which roles are changing, that has to be a continuous ecosystem and like a continuous engine. Otherwise, you're going to have stale signal like as soon as you ship it out.
Can I borrow your audience question? Ask a question. Hands up if your company's delivered AI 101 in the last 12 months. Hands up if you've changed your AI 101 in the last 3 months. Slightly fewer hands, right? And so, I asked that as a tangential question. Recently, actually about a month ago in Vegas for Transform and Unleash, there were people who were like, should we ever stop delivering AI 101? Because 3 years ago, AI 101 was like, write a really good prompt. Now it's like, you have to learn how to switch between models. Which one do you use so you don't burn out all your tokens? Do you talk to it? Blah, 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 right? And I even think, Tracy's example about Zapier's updated AI fluency framework from year 1 to year 2, that gets this as well, right? So what I was measuring for quality of hire in January might be different in April already, right? And you need the definition, you need the assessment, like to your point, both of you, like these things that go together because of the what we're measuring, the why we're measuring it, the outcomes we're hoping to drive for the roles we're hiring are continuing to change at such a pace.
Well, and it's a constant change loop, and it's changing faster than all this stuff did in the past. In the past, with like, collaboration's important. Let's focus on collaboration. Didn't really change that much. Mm-hmm. How you use different models changes with the wind. And so there's a lot there. I think it's a really good call.
Jeff, coming back to like, you got to do both, define the right things and assess the right things.
Yeah.
If you're starting on the journey, which it feels like we're always restarting on the journey every single year, how are you diagnosing which one of those, you have to do both, but you have limited time. Yeah. Where do you start? How do you diagnose where the bigger problem is?
Yeah, I mean, historically for me, it's always that initial alignment is the first place to start. I remember when I first started at Toast, we had a challenge hiring sales reps. And all the sales leaders used all the same terminology. But if you poked it, they weren't speaking the same language. And so we had to get them in a room and do this like, you guys actually aren't aligned, even though you say the word grit, you don't mean the same thing. Here's a bunch of resumes. Who do you think actually looks good? And they're like, oh, that person's terrible. I'm like, that's your top performer. And like we had to do this like really detailed, painful alignment session. And we continue to pound away on it. Every time we hire a new sales manager, it's like, here comes the alignment for you. And so without that, I feel like you're building on top of quicksand. And so you've got to go there first, in my opinion.
I think just building on that, pre-AI in the hiring process, we've relied on judgment at all levels. And when you spread judgment too thin, it's really hard to have decision conviction. And so what I believe AI can help us do is take those foundational layers, provide signal so that humans can focus their judgment on the most nuanced parts of making hiring decisions.
Can you make that like practical?
Yeah. For example, looking at a resume, we all know recruiters don't look at resumes anymore, right? But even screens, like at what point does the RPI, the recruiter phone interview, matter as much as the face-to-face interview? And so the question is, what are the high volume steps in the process that are currently low signal because we're spreading judgment too thin, that we can use AI because you have the ability to recognize patterns, so that when you get further into the process, you have more data on a candidate, it gives you greater confidence. And so for us, practically, one of the things we measure to look at quality of process is what I call decision conviction. You have a 4-point rating scale. How many of you have like the soft yes in your interviews, right? And like the worst thing, or like the soft, I got a soft no on this candidate or a soft yes. My goal is to eliminate the soft yeses and the soft no's and actually use the full spectrum of the rating scale. And put practically, our CEO, I've done, in hiring with our CEO for C-level candidates, she would rather have 2 interviewers be a strong yes and 1 person be a no than 3 yeses, because there's decision conviction there. And so I think being really clear on what signal looks like, aligning in principle from the top down, and then putting it into practice and measuring it is really, really important in order to actually have valid signal in your process.
I'm wondering, like, what do you see across, you're working with so many different companies on this, what are you seeing them actually put in place to drive that level of consistency across their process?
So there's probably 2 or 3 things that I've been thinking about with what you both shared. One, Jeff, your point on the alignment. There's actually an organization I know who's like, all right, we're going to bring AI tooling into our hiring process. We put 50 resumes in front of hiring managers today, and we're going to get it down to 10. It's going to be the top 10 best. And by the time they did that, the managers are like, what happened to our pipeline? Like, where'd all our candidates go? Do we have a hiring problem now? And they're like, no, we used AI. These are the top 10. They're like, prove it. How do I know? So they had to start back over, bring all the managers back through. This is how, right, to drive alignment, right?
Yep.
Well then, so secondarily, we talk about quality of hire. I know a number of organizations that are now exploring how do you use like AI screening, AI interviewing, agentic, et cetera. And that's, now they're saying, well, we're actually improving the quality of our talent pool. Like our talent pool, we're reaching a much wider set of people that we never were able to reach before. And by the nature of the quality of our talent pool coming up, our quality of hire should be better, right? So I think, and this gets to the complexity of like the talent technology ecosystem, the number of areas where you can put AI and automation capabilities in place, and then how along all those steps do you bring the humans into this to go tackle? So I don't think that was an answer per se, but that was like two different areas where I'm seeing like organizations take steps to then address parts of the process that begin to have an influence on the metric that we're talking about here.
I mean, so one of the things, again, define what you're looking for and then make sure you're assessing consistently around that. And one of the things you're saying is if you can use technology at the top of the funnel to assess consistently around maybe transferable skills or other things that a recruiter might miss, might not show up as like, standard casting, you expand the talent pool, can actually get better candidates in and increase quality that way.
I think that alignment on like what you are solving for is so incredibly important, because I do think a lot of companies think about using, TA teams think about using AI to filter candidates. How do we filter the noise out? I think that's the wrong approach, because you're not actually trying to filter out, you're trying to elevate the highest signal, like get the highest signal candidates. And so we developed a set of principles on how we would use AI with Allison and team. And so one of them was filter in, like AI as a filter in, not filter out. And so how do you use data to get stronger signal?
Jeff, if you were applying technology somewhere to solve one of those two problems, getting alignment or driving consistency in evaluation, where do you see the bigger upside in technology playing a role?
Technology for sure on the assessment side.
Yeah. What would it look like?
Is this the shameless Bright Hire plug time? Because I mean, like all kidding aside, it does look a lot like being able to audit and review and pressure test how that assessment is going and whether it's consistent. The example I always use for Bright Hire is learning that like the number one question candidates have is like role clarity at Toast, which is also like one of the number one things that employees complain about. And it's like, okay, TA team, that's our problem to solve. So people don't join unless they have role clarity. And like, we would have figured that out in a pre-AI world.
So it's interesting, building on that, shameless Bright Hire plug. So we've been partnering with Bright Hire to use Screen, and we've used Screen over the past quarter with entry-level like SDR, BDR type roles. It's funny you say that, because when we did this, we've screened probably 600 candidates using the tool. And there was this urge to throw as much as possible into the screen because we wanted to get as much signal as possible. So we had 4 questions, then we added a 5th and a 6th and a 7th. We had 9 questions. And what we found is there was no signal coming out of that. It was a whole bunch of noise. We ran the data and found that there were 2 things that actually were the greatest predictor of whether someone was going to get an offer. One of them was motivation, like the drive and the motivation. The other was role clarity. Do people actually understand the role that they're going into? We now stripped back and only asked those 2 questions, ran all of our candidates through the data again, and the chance of a false negative, rejecting a candidate who actually should have gone through, is 0.2%. And so getting that signal is really, really valuable. And that's where you can use AI to get that confidence at scale.
That wasn't scripted, by the way.
Not at all.
I actually didn't know that you had the same finding. That's cool.
I think we've got like 2 minutes left. What questions do we have from the audience, or what skepticism do y'all want to throw up here?
So I have a question, one actually really related to this topic. Have you all benchmarked quality of hires against internal hires? Because we are in the middle of our, a lot of AI hiring at Workday, and we've done about 45% of this agentic AI hiring internally. And so we're trying to benchmark, like, where does success lie?
Yeah.
Is it from the external market, which is very pricey, or is it from actually growing our own? So I was just curious if you've looked into that.
You go first.
I have basically scrapped all of our quality of hire stuff because it was garbage. So no. I just found no signal and was like, I am wasting a ton of my own energy when there's all these other inputs that are actually where I should go spend my time, to be totally honest with you.
I'll offer a different point of view. So I think it depends on the outcomes you're trying to drive. So for me, if I think about what I want people who stay. I want people who meet expectations. So there's attrition, there's performance, and I want people who want to be here. There's engagement. We have looked at internal versus external talent. Our internal talent is half as likely to attrit, voluntary or involuntary, if they have made an internal move, like moved into a new job. They have a 60% higher employee experience score. So they are like 60% more positive on HubSpot. And they have faster time to ramp. And so for me, there's no North Star quality of hire metric in there, but those are business outcomes that like my stakeholders really care about. And so I would get really clear on what outcomes you want to drive and try to like hone in on that versus like a North Star approach. Is that helpful?
I love that.
I think one thing that I would also maybe add and acknowledge is when I work with companies, a lot of that is really like CEO, C-suite dependent. They're like, our people don't have the right capability internally, we got to go hire externally. We're going to slow down hiring, we got to rotate people internally, right? So there's these like business strategy swings relative to your hiring that can then have an influence on what that looks like from a metrics perspective. And given all the conversation today about, in panel right before this, AI native, right? I have seen a number of larger technology companies like, we have no one AI native internally, we only can hire externally to get AI native talent in, right? So and that gets back to almost this quality of hire framework, because you might actually have said, we think, because of data like yours, that our quality of hire is better if it's an internal move. But then if the CEO or the C-suite is questioning, do I even have the internal talent capability? Well, for AI native, we're going to go elsewhere, right? So I think some of that gets into how do you use the metric as a frame?
Yeah, we have a very narrow set of roles that has mobility. And so it's like, it's to Becky's point, like the business problem is not like super huge for me to spend a bunch of time there. Whereas you've got great data, which is cool.
Yeah.
Last one, and I'm going to call it we solved it. Maybe you'll solve it, Eric.
We might.
Yeah, just to play devil's advocate for a second here.
Let's go.
So Becky, I love that approach. Could you take performance, engagement, and retention and develop like a composite index as your like baseline proxy for quality of hire?
Maybe, but if it showed something bad, I'd want to unpack it anyway. So like, I'd want to be going deep anyway. It's a good question. I don't know.
We will
Jeff?
pick that up tomorrow. Jeff, Becky, Kyle, thank you so much.